YouTube, hey, what's good? What's happening? What's popping, man? What's happening with y'all? Hey, man, just woke up, just brushed my teeth, just washed my face type shit, and I'm on the tube. 6 most disturbing internet rabbit holes. Let's go.
Spontaneous human combustion. At around 8 a.m. on July 2nd, 1951, a woman named Pansy Carpenter received a telegram. It was addressed to one of her tenants, a 67-year-old woman named Mary Hardy Reeser. She went to Reeser's apartment to deliver the telegram, but despite calling out to her multiple times, Pansy didn't receive any response. She tried to open the...
tell how young I am? I don't know what the hell a telegram is. The only telegram I know is the app.
The door, but the doorknob to Reeser's apartment was uncomfortably hot to the touch. Unsure of what to do next, Pansy called the police. After arriving on the scene, officers opened the door by force. However, what they saw behind that door would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Reeser was gone. In her place was a pile of ashes scattered across the floor.
Oh my God.
Upon closer inspection, officers found part of her left foot still wearing a slipper along with fragments of her backbone. Even more bizarrely, later reports mentioned that her skull had shrunk to the size of a teacup. What made the discovery even stranger was the condition of the apartment. The fire that had consumed Reeser's body was confined to a shockingly small area. The surrounding furniture remained untouched. In his report, St. Petersburg Police Chief J.R. Reichert stated, "We request any information or theories that could explain how a human body could be so destroyed and the fire confined to such a small area and so little damage done to the structure of the building and the furniture in the room not even scorched or damaged by smoke."
How the fuck do that work? Shit, I guess he finna tell us.
Reeser's death became one of the most infamous cases of what is now referred to as spontaneous human combustion. This phenomenon describes cases where people seemingly ignite and burn to ashes without any external fuel source, leaving behind only a few remains, like a leg or a hand. A similar thing happened to physician John Irving Bentley in 1966, where the only thing left of him was the lower part of his right leg and the rest was burned to ashes.
Damn,
Later in 1979, another case made headlines. A 51-year-old woman named Beatrice Oski suffered from the same fate on Thanksgiving in a village in Bolingbrook, Illinois. And as absurd as the concept of humans unexplainably catching fire sounds, it's definitely not a hoax or legend. One of the earliest documented cases of spontaneous human combustion was recorded in 1746 when Paul...
So you telling me I got some new shit to be scared of? You telling me right now I can just boop, I can just boop, and it's over? Just like that?
Rowley wrote about the mysterious death of Countess Cornelia Zangari Bondi. Since then, dozens of similar incidents have been reported across the world. One of the recent examples of this phenomenon was in Sequoia County, Oklahoma in 2013.
The cause of this house fire is still undetermined, where they found a man dead inside his home, but the sheriff says he isn't ruling out spontaneous human combustion as one of those causes. Investigators say they found a man dead from a fire lying on the kitchen floor, but the sheriff says there were only reports of smoke coming from the house. Fire investigators who have years of experience say they've never heard or seen anything like this before.
I really would like to see the coroner's report on this one after it goes to the state crime lab.
So, what's going on? How could a human body that's around 60% water go up in flames?
Unlucky you gotta be to go through some shit like this.
Claiming phenomena like poltergeist activity, lightning strikes, or even unexplained cosmic forces. There's even speculation about a mysterious subatomic particle called a pyrotron that allegedly ignites human bodies. But these ideas are, for the most part, easily dismissible. The people making these claims don't have any real evidence to back them up. That said, we can get some idea of what's going on after taking a closer look at all of the reported cases. And after sifting through most of them, I noticed some similarities between the victims. Notably, many of them were elderly and on the heavier side when it came to weight, had an unhealthy drinking or smoking problem, and a potential source of fire was nearby, like a burning stove.
Don't be old, don't be healthy, don't be overweight. That's how you don't blow up spontaneously.
Researchers have noticed these similarities as well and have proposed the wick effect theory. To understand this theory, think of how a candle works. When we light the wick on fire, it uses the wax surrounding it as fuel to burn for an extremely long time. So, according to the wick effect theory, something like this must have happened.
What the fuck? Nigga, they're like the chair in my mama room. They're like the chair. Hold on. Nigga, this look like the
likely
chair
started
in
from
my
according
mother's
to the
room.
Wick effect theory.
Nigga, did my mama blow up and I ain't even know about it while I been at school? Nah, imagine.
Something like this must have happened.
Destroyed.
The fire likely started from an external
videos.
source like a lit cigarette or a spark from the fireplace igniting the victim's clothes. The person was either passed out from drinking or was too weak to immediately put the fire out. Or before the clothes could burn off, the fat stored in their bodies started acting like the wax in a candle, making them burn until there was nothing left. This would also explain the bizarre burning pattern where the torso is completely incinerated and the legs are left behind, since we carry most of our fat content in our abdominal region and very little in our legs. Unfortunately, experiments performed to prove this theory haven't been very successful. For instance, back in 2016, BBC decided to recreate the conditions of the Wick effect with a pig carcass. And while its body was completely roasted, it didn't disintegrate into ash like the many cases of human combustion. That's simply because the fire fueled by fat tissue doesn't have the temperature required for what's essentially cremation. Back in 2012, biologist Brian J. Ford tried to explain the high temperature requirements in his 2012 paper titled Solving the Mystery of Spontaneous Human Combustion. According to Brian, factors like alcoholism or low-carb dieting produce acetone in our bodies, which is the same chemical found in paint thinner. Now, acetone is extremely flammable and can easily reach temperatures that would turn a person into nothing but ash.
Okay.
Brian also created small puppets out of pig meat, coated them with acetone, and lit them on fire. The puppets burned for about 30 minutes and left only the legs intact, just like with the human cases. But if Brian's theory is correct, it still doesn't explain why spontaneous human combustion is so rare. If all it takes is alcohol and a specific diet, why aren't we seeing more cases of this phenomenon? Especially now that there are cameras everywhere. Unfortunately, we have no answer for that. It might turn out to be something
See, like, you can't tell me, like, this is crazy that you can just pop, nigga. You can just catch, nigga, you can pass out from drinking and just catch on fire and just burn to fucking ashes with nothing but your legs left. Nigga, you can't tell me God and the devil ain't real. You can't tell me. Cause how the fuck some shit like this even happen? Like, we being real. These niggas not pouring acetone on theyself and lighting theyself on fire. And it's drink, and like he said, everybody, it's a gang of motherfuckers that drink. I'm sure it was people that were drinking more than the ones that burnt alive, that spontaneously combusted. It's way more people drinking way more than them, I guarantee it.
Completely different from what we believe right now. But this phenomenon of humans burning to ash without damaging their surroundings is real. And it's just a matter of time before someone uncovers the truth behind this disturbing rabbit hole.
Shit, I just told you.
Before we move on, I wanted to take some time to talk about this video's sponsor, Aura.
Big G up there.
Have you ever Googled yourself out of curiosity and been genuinely shocked by how much personal sports right there and quickly found that to smokers everything vulnerable to exposed? In 1995, Oklahoma became the site of one of the deadliest acts of terrorism in American history. Amid the chaos and destruction, rescue workers made a strange and unsettling discovery: a single, unidentified leg buried in the rubble. What should have been just
another y'all know, like, they say during 9/11, the rescue dogs, they would, like, the people who, was working with the rescue dogs, they would hide themselves under the rubble because the dogs was getting sad because every time they found someone, it would be a dead body. So they hid under the rubble, so they gave the dog hope that he can find more alive people. That's
piece of forensic evidence quickly spiraled into a chilling mystery, one that continues to raise questions long after investigators thought the case was closed. But to fully grasp how this one unidentified leg ties into the bigger plot, we first need to understand what happened that day. On the morning of April 19, 1995, at 8:57 a.m., a mysterious Ryder truck pulled up in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City. However, the people working in the Murrah building didn't pay much attention to it. Work was about to start and everyone was rushing to clock in on time. Unfortunately, this day would end in disaster just minutes later. At 9:02 a.m., the Ryder truck exploded with the force of 5,000 pounds of TNT. Within moments, the surrounding area looked like a war zone. A third of the building had been reduced to rubble, with many floors completely
Hey, I remember that. Where it was? Paris and Call of Duty, where that goddamn truck like that exploded. Was there event in Call of Duty based off of this? Ooh, shit, the air done kicked on.
Cars were incinerated on the spot, and more than 300 nearby buildings were damaged or destroyed. The momentary damage was estimated to be over $650 million.
Damn.
But the human toll was far worse.
Oh my God.
The explosion claimed the lives of 168 people, including 19 children.
Bro, how you
Around
do some shit like that?
people
It's so
were also
evil.
injured in the initial detonation and the resulting collapse of the building. It wasn't long before the FBI was on the scene and looking for clues to find the suspect, which didn't take long. On April 20, investigators found the rear axle of the Ryder truck. That single piece of evidence carried a vehicle identification number, leading them to a body shop in Junction City, Kansas. With the help of the employees of the shop, investigators were able to create this sketch of the person who rented the Ryder truck that was used in the attack.
What nigga look like
The next
Forrest
step was to
Gump?
circulate it around town. By April 21, the break they needed arrived. A local hotel employee recognized the sketch and even remembered the man's name, Timothy James McVeigh, a 27-year-old ex-Army soldier. However, when investigators began looking for Timothy, they made a shocking discovery. He was already in jail. As it turns out, he had been arrested just 90 minutes after the bombing, roughly 80 miles north of Oklahoma City. Oklahoma State Trooper Charlie Hanger pulled him over for driving without a license plate. The state trooper also found a concealed weapon on Timothy, which led to his arrest.
Nigga,
a thorough search of his getaway vehicle also revealed a business card with an incriminating statement written on the back, reading, TNT at $5 a stick, need more. As investigators looked deeper, they learned about Timothy's motive behind causing such a tragedy. His actions boiled down to extreme radicalization and anti-government rhetoric. Much of his anger stemmed from the 1993 Waco siege in Texas, a 51-day standoff between federal agents and the Branch Davidians, a religious cult. The siege ended in a catastrophic fire that killed 86 people, including women and children. Timothy was particularly angered by the government's use of tear gas on women and children. He had been exposed to the gas as part of his military training and was familiar with its painful effects. However, despite catching their suspect and learning about his motive, the investigators wanted to weed out any potentially hidden accomplices, like foreign terrorist organizations. They reviewed multiple pieces of information and found out that Timothy used barrels and ammunition nitrate fertilizer as the primary source for the explosion. They also discovered and arrested his two accomplices who helped him throughout the process, Michael Fortier and Terry Nichols. With their arrests, investigators believe the case had finally been cracked wide open.
Oh my God, there's more.
However, during the rescue efforts, the police encountered a new problem. Amid the rubble, they discovered an unidentified left leg. By this point, most of the victims had been accounted for and buried.
It was 4 of them niggas, and one of them died doing this stupid shit, man.
The existence of this leg didn't make sense. Who did it belong to? Things became even more disturbing when the owner of the leg was identified as one of the victims, Lakeisha Levy, a member of the U.S. Air Force. However, when they exhumed her to place the leg where it belonged, the investigators were shocked to see that Lakeisha was already buried with 2 legs, a left and a right. Further investigation revealed that the unidentified leg did indeed belong to Lakeisha, and she had been mistakenly buried with 1 wrong leg. But this raised an even bigger question. Who was the owner of the leg Lakeisha was buried with?
I'd be mad as hell.
It's been nearly 30 years since the incident, and we still don't have an answer. A popular theory I came across was that the mysterious leg belonged to a second accomplice who killed Timothy and was mistakenly caught in the blast.
What else could it be?
This would be a viable theory, if not for the fact that the investigators did not find any solid evidence pointing towards a second suspect being at the crime scene.
That's the second, that's the evidence, the leg.
The mystery has sparked some wild conspiracies. You see, there's a group of people who believe that the bombing was a government conspiracy to cleverly destroy investigative documentation regarding
fucking course.
The Clintons and the Whitewater scandal. According to this theory, the mysterious leg belonged to the second accomplice who was working for the government. And the reason it hasn't been identified even after all these years is because it's part of a deliberate cover-up. But from what I've seen, this theory is a bit too far-fetched to be true. Think of it this way, if the people in power wanted to get rid of some documents, they had a million other more suitable ways to accomplish this goal. Ones that didn't involve the tragic loss of so many lives. The more likely explanation for this mysterious leg is that it belonged to some undocumented homeless person who was near the building at the time of the incident. One Reddit user also backed this theory with a personal account stating, "I visited the area the day before with a coworker to get a search warrant from the U.S. District Court and also visit the people in the Murrah building. I was there during the investigation as an investigator. There was a black homeless woman that panhandled in front of the Murrah building. Everyone in my office was convinced it was her. We had seen her many, many times. You'll never change any of our minds that the leg wasn't hers. However, we really don't know if this is true to this day.
Y'all seen that boot? That's like
ain't
no woman wearing no boots like that, homeless or not. That's like a nigga boot.
Just to confirm or deny the theories floating
like
on the
a boot that a man would wear.
Hybrid. In March of 2002, a tabletop RPG called The One Paragraph RPG was published by a person named Matthew/C++.
This is fucking coding, bro. I remember doing this shit in middle school. I hated all this shit. Did y'all do that? Did y'all do this? Nigga, coding was, that class probably was like an hour and 30 minutes. It was the worst hour and 30 minutes I had to go through for a whole semester. How long was a semester? 4 months? It was the longest 4 months of my life. I hated going to that class.
An overly complicated game with nonsensical rules and mathematical equations. However, the author changed its name to Hybrid and kept updating the game over the upcoming years. And with each update, the game got more and more complicated. As it stands right now, Hybrid has a total of 551 rules, which explain everything from the progression to the power system.
How you come up with shit like that?
The truth is, these rules don't really explain anything. Hybrid is a chaotic mishmash of disjointed ideas and concepts that fail to work together, leaving the game completely unplayable. Of course, the large number of rules is a massive deterrent for most people, not to mention the horrendous, headache-inducing color scheme of the website.
Yeah, I'm about to say, y'all seen me like this?
Those who actually spend the time to read and decipher these rules have come to the conclusion that the vast majority of Hybrid is utter nonsense. For example, Matthew included countless mathematical equations in the rule set. But solving these equations often requires abbreviations like C2, DP, and LP, none of which are ever defined in the game. To make matters worse, some of the equations themselves are entirely made up and don't even adhere to basic mathematical principles. And
I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of interested in this shit because it means something. We just don't know what it means yet. I'm sure at some point, this video got millions of views and motherfuckers gonna be going to thinking the same way I'm thinking. They getting interested in this shit, in this hybrid shit. And they're gonna be going trying to decipher, trying to figure it out. And eventually, somebody gonna do the shit. They gonna understand all 505 rules. The color scheme ain't gonna fuck with them. And they gonna figure the shit out and decipher because it means something. The nigga that made this is probably a genius. I think they had the white dude beat the Matrix, so not to offend the white audience, but the black dude was really the Matrix with the persecution complex. I don't even know what that is. So the white dude should have his C3 DP moved to his new C2 DP, and the black dude should have his C3 DP moved to his new C1 DP, making the white dude somewhat delusional, or maybe he just went along. Maybe that process itself might have been some kind of hidden message that white people like to confirm. Less than sign, but I could be looking too much into the movie. We don't understand it because we're stuck in the Matrix. We're stuck in the Matrix.
That wasn't enough, the game is also riddled with odd tangents, like movie reviews and a brownie recipe, in case the players got hungry while reading the rules. Now, some people have tried to rationalize Matthew's intent behind creating these pages of utter chaos and nonsense, seeing this as a genuine attempt from someone with zero knowledge of game design.
No! Imagine you use that brownie recipe and you eat the brownies while doing this shit, and it gives you like some type of psychedelic trip where you just understand all this shit. Imagine that. But then, after you come down from your trip, you forget all that shit even happened. No. Now that's a rabbit hole to explore, nigga.
Pure oddity of this whole thing, that doesn't seem to be the case. Which leaves us with only two options to justify the existence of Hybrid. For starters, it's entirely possible that this whole thing is a massive troll. The author knows that 99% of his quote game doesn't make any sense and made it just to confuse people on the internet.
It could be true
now,
too.
This could have been a plausible theory if not for the fact that Matthew kept working on it for years. The website hosting the game was shut down in 2009, but the author came back with a blog in 2016 and has continued the game since. Not even the most dedicated trolls have the time and energy to churn out so much gibberish for so many years. From what I've seen, the more likely option is that Hybrid is the life's work of a madman. Matthew is serious about creating the most complicated tabletop RPG ever. However, he's also suffering from some sort of mental illness, likely schizophrenia, which would explain everything from the random tangents, nonsense rules, and bizarre rants. In fact, the hybrid RPG poses a striking resemblance to poorly planned comics by someone named Jack Masters, which I discussed in a previous video. Jack was also suffering from severe schizophrenia and created something just as bizarre as hybrid. Sadly, given how long it's been going for at this point,
I ain't gonna lie, looking
really
at shit like that just make me feel
would
like
ever come out and
easy.
explain his situation and intentions in plain text. Temple OS.
I'm telling you, he can. It's definitely possible that Buddy could have schizophrenia or whatever he was talking about. But me personally, I don't think he do. Honestly, can a person with schizophrenia come up with math equations like that motherfuckers
Davis
can
was born in
barely solve?
1969 in West Allis, Wisconsin. He had a keen interest in computers from a young age, which resulted in him learning the assembly programming language on a Commodore 64 as a teenager.
What the fuck is this?
He later earned both a bachelor's degree in computer engineering and a master's degree in electrical engineering from Arizona State University, and began working for Ticketmaster as a programmer. He had a good education, a steady job, and loving parents. Things were looking up for Terry. Unfortunately, by the time he turned 27, he started experiencing regular manic episodes. He was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, the latter of which became the driving force behind the project that made him famous, Temple OS. You see, back in 2003, he experienced a self-described revelation. In his words, God spoke to him and asked him to create a temple,
put my hands behind my back
as an operating system. This operating system went through many names, including J Operating System, Sparrow OS, and Lose Those. Terry finally settled on the name Temple OS in 2013 and published his work for the world to see. The most impressive thing about Temple OS is that Terry spent a decade building it from scratch. It featured 119,000 lines of code, and every single one of them is written by Terry himself without relying on any existing libraries of code. And for an OS created by a single person, it's chock full of features, including his own programming language called Holy See and multiple games based around religion. Like After Egypt, which requires the player to travel to a burning bush, which generates randomized text. Terry believed that this text was coded messages from God. However, while his programming skills remained sharp, his ability to grasp the reality around him kept getting weaker by the day. He would often go on incomprehensible rants with an unhealthy dose of slurs.
God, I hate Frasier. The CIA glow in the dark. You can see them if you're driving. You just run them over. That's what you do. CIA.
He often posted similar rants on his Twitter account as well. However, among the madness, he would sometimes become lucid and say some extremely profound statements. Madness.
I hate the CIA. They operate by blackmail. They are scum. They got the Saudi king by the short hairs.
He would sometimes become lucid and say some extremely profound statements. What's reality? I don't know. When my bird was looking at my computer monitor, I thought, that bird has no idea what he's looking at. And yet, what does the bird do? Does he panic? No, he can't really panic. He just does the best he can. Is he able to live in a world where he's so ignorant? Well, he doesn't really have a choice. The bird is okay even though he doesn't understand the world. You're that bird looking at the monitor, and you're thinking to yourself, I can figure this out. Maybe you have some bird ideas. Maybe that's the best you can do. Unfortunately, his mental health took a devastating turn in December 2017. After refusing to take his medication, Terry got into a heated argument with his parents.
Well, I'm King Terry, and
learned
how to purify myself in a horribly impure environment. It's pretty rough living homeless and
no, he's not finna off himself, is it?
The confrontation pushed him to leave his home, and he spent the following months living on the streets, homeless and struggling. In September 2018, Terry's life came to a tragic end when he was involved in an accident with a train near an overpass in Portland. However, despite passing away over 6 years ago, Terry still has a dedicated fan base online that's willing to keep his memory alive for decades to come.
Shit. Hey, it's crazy because that's all people want to like. They just want to be remembered after they're gone.
Too fast from tying your shoes back in.
Chris Burden. Christopher Lee Burden was an American artist who began his work in the early 1970s. However, unlike many artists whose goal is to create something visually pleasing, Chris's art was more about the idea of personal danger as artistic expression, and this was apparent from the get-go. His first known art performance was at the University of California in 1971, where for his final thesis, he locked himself in a locker for 5 days with nothing but a jug of water to drink and an empty jug to relieve himself.
Okay, now that's dumb as shit. Now that's dumb as shit. Dumb as shit. Why would you even put yourself through that for no reason at all? Well, shit, I guess there's a reason, because obviously we're talking about the nigga now.
Next big art piece was a picture of him with a pistol aiming at an airplane. While he did get a visit from the FBI for this one, it was far from his most disturbing art pieces.
Ain't gonna lie, that picture
in
kind of fire.
1972, he performed what was later called TV hijack, which involved him going on an interview on TV and then holding the host of the interview at knife point. Fortunately, he explained to the terrified host that this was just an art piece and no one got hurt. But the most chilling thing about Chris's work was that he wasn't afraid of getting hurt. In his 1971 performance called Shoot, he gave his friend a rifle and told him to shoot him in the arm. Now, the idea was the friend would barely graze his arm. However, he missed the mark and ended up shooting Chris clean through his arm, forcing him to be rushed to the hospital. And while the pain in this performance was accidental, Chris has also done pieces where he gets hurt on purpose, like the 1974 performance called Transfixed. For this performance, Chris Burden crucified himself.
This nigga transfixed on his fucked up ideology. He transfixed on his fucked up ideology. Hey, it's crazy, but some people love the shit that they love so much that they'll do shit like this. They'll do crazy shit, which is understandable, but it ain't right.
Of a pale blue Volkswagen Beetle. With nails hammered through his palms, he remained in that position as the car was driven slowly around his neighborhood.
Nigga, now your ass tripping.
In his later years, he moved on to more traditional sculpture-based art. However, his willingness to put his life on the line for what he considered art is still unmatched. As for the meanings behind his many deeply unseen...
Now imagine getting through your hands and then through your feet and hanging on a fucking wooden stake cross for hours.
Performances, experts have yet to reach a consensus.
Getting called
it's
type
unclear
of
if his
names
stunts had some genuine meaning behind them, or if many of them were just to say, "Look what I can do." But knowing Chris and his work, this is exactly how he wanted his work to be remembered.
Stabbed up here.
The Luna Park Fire. On June 9th, 1979, at around 10 p.m., Sydney authorities received a call that would change the lives of many people forever. The ghost train ride at Luna Park was on fire, and dozens of people were stuck inside. The ghost train's signature feature was its dimly lit, winding tunnel, where riders were surrounded by special effects, including an imitation fire. For many inside, the flames ahead looked like a part of the ride, a harmless illusion meant to thrill. But as they would soon learn, this fire wasn't part of the attraction. And by the time they realized the danger, it was too late. People tried to find a way out, but the tunnel was pitch black, and the thick smoke made it impossible to breathe or see. With the ride's mostly wood construction, and with no sprinklers or fire safety in place, the flames...
What type of fucking ride? Pitch black, no emergency lights, no sprinklers, no fire extinguisher, any random place. Nothing, no intercom to tell y'all that this shit going on, no emergency siren sounds, nothing. This shit shouldn't have been open in the first place.
The ones that somehow managed to find the exit barely escaped with their lives. But their horrors didn't end there. 12-year-old survivor Jason Holman described the disturbing sight he witnessed while standing outside the ghost train. He was waiting for his friends to come out from the ride as well. But what he saw instead were empty carriages rolling out of the tunnel completely on fire. This sight was even more haunting for Jenny Godson, who had come to the park with her husband John and 2 sons Damien and Craig on a family holiday.
Twins.
The family had spent the day enjoying the park's many attractions and had 4 tickets left at the end. The boys, aged 2 and 4, decided to spend these leftover tickets on the ghost train. John went with them on the ride, while Jenny went off to get ice cream for the family. By the time she got back, the fire had already destroyed everything.
Everything the light touches is your canvas with Sharpie Creative Markers. Disney's Mufasa The Lion King, now playing only in theaters.
I was from the country. I came down here to share a night with my family, and my whole world just sort of fell to pieces.
Fire trucks rushed to the scene.
Heartbreaking, dog. What would you do? What would you do? You went through some shit like that. You went to go get ice cream for your family, and you come back and they done burnt alive. Damn. What do you do?
And
what do
spend
you
hours trying
think
to
in a
prevent
situation like that? What do you
and
feel?
While they managed
what
to
type
stop
of
it before the
emotions
whole
is going
park burned to
through
the
you?
ground, it was already too late. In total, the fire had claimed the lives of 7 victims, 6 of which were children. The ride also featured several life-size figures dressed up as ghosts. And when rescuers found these 7 victims, their bodies were so badly burned that paramedics found it difficult to distinguish them from the burned mannequins. Given the unexpected nature of this fire, most people thought that it was arson. However, lead detective Doug Knight quickly shut down any speculation and claimed that it was nothing more than an unfortunate accident.
We're now satisfied that the fire was as a result of an electrical fault within the building.
Now, I have seen many paranormal theories that try to explain the fire. For instance, some believe that since the ride was deemed after
Y'all see this
ghosts,
shit? What type of interest is this? What the fuck? Bro, I'm not going in this park anyway. The only reason you go to Disney World and Six Flags, you go to Disney World because the shit look appealing. It's kid shit. You know what I'm saying? This is scary. This is not inviting at all. You know, you see Mickey Mouse, you see Stitch, you see at Universal, you see the Marvel characters that you love so much and shit like that. Six Flags, you know, everybody knows what Six Flags is. You see the superhero, you see the DC characters and shit like that, right? This? Nah.
Actual ghosts gathering there in its tunnels and causing a fire. One of the victims, Damian Godson, also took this picture with a cowman earlier in the day, sparking
see, like, that is freaky. Who wants to go here? Now it kind of making sense that they ain't had none of that shit I was talking about earlier on that ride, cause they janky. Like, what the fuck? Like, look what this nigga got on. Bro, I'm not letting my kids take no picture with this motherfucker. Look at him.
One who caused the fire, when in reality he was likely nothing more than a mascot. The true cause of the Luna Park tragedy, however, is much scarier than any ghost or creepy cowman. It's human greed. You see, Detective Doug Knight ordered the demolition and cleaning of the site less than 12 hours after the fire was put out. Even if they had absolute proof that it was an accident, this was still highly unusual and extremely suspicious. However, the police stuck by their statement that the fire was caused by an electrical fault in the ride's building. 8 years later, in 1987, Australia's National Crime Authority reopened the investigation and discovered that the previous investigations were ineffective and inadequate. However, despite this revelation, the Luna Park case would remain a mystery for another 34 years. In 2021, journalist Carl Meldrum Hanna investigated the case and uncovered previously hidden evidence, including several key witness statements. According to Carl, the police went to great lengths to hide statements from people who mentioned smelling highly flammable kerosene before the fire broke out. Some people also reported seeing several shady men walking the park. A teen even mentioned overhearing one of these shady men talking about starting a fire. Not only were these reports never investigated by the police, but these witnesses were also pressured to follow the electrical fault narrative that the investigators were telling the public. And Doug Knight was supposedly in on it the whole time. He was allegedly working for crime boss Abe Saffron, who was also known as Mr. Sin. He wanted to own the prime waterfront real estate the park was sitting on. And what better way to drive down its value than by reducing it to ashes? As a result of Carl's findings, the Australian government has now reopened the Luna Park investigation. They've also placed $1 million reward for anyone with information that could help investigators reach.
Ain't nobody coming to the forefront, honestly, even for that meal. I promise you they not.
Delivering justice to those 7 victims after half a century.
And even if they do come forward, probably ain't nothing gonna come from it, cause motherfuckers gonna strong arm the little guys. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. There's always somebody bigger and badder than you, especially when it comes to an organization. But hey, man, appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm gonna get at y'all in the next one.